All right, let's have a look at problem 820. It is just as important to consider the spread of the data as it is to consider the center when comparing data sets. A, calculate the interquartile range for each golf club in the previous problem. With which club is Josh more consistent? So I am going to copy down my median and quartiles from the previous problem. So with the wedge, it was 4, 2, and 15. And then with the 8 iron, we had 10.5, 8, and 12. All right, so to find the interquartile range, what we are going to do is we are going to take that third quartile and subtract the first quartile. So for the wedge, we are going to do 15 minus 2. And when we do 15 minus 2, we're going to get an interquartile range of 13. Now with the 8 iron, again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take the third quartile and subtract the first. So we're going to do 12 minus 8, which gives us an interquartile range of 4. All right, so we did the first part for part A. Now they want to know with which club is Josh more consistent. So a smaller interquartile range is going to mean more consistency. So there's less variability is what that means. He's getting, distances that the more we hit the ball with the 8 iron here, the more we are going to get scores that are, within the same range. So in this case, we're going to say Josh is more consistent with the 8 iron. All right, and that was all part A. So let's have a look at part B now. So it says if Josh decided to use the 8 iron, he could typically expect to hit the ball so that it lands between 8 and 12 yards from the hole. And again, we are getting that number, that 8 and 12, from our first and third quartile. So anytime he hits the ball with that 8 iron, it's going to, most of the time land between 8 and 12 yards. So that's where we got that interquartile range. That's what that means. Now, they want to know if Josh decided to use the wedge, what is a typical interval of distances from the hole he could expect the ball to land? Well, let's have a look here at our first quartile, third quartile. So that's a range. Now the median is actually, we could say it's the second quartile. So the median is in between the first and the third. So we could say then for part B that it would be between 2 and 15 yards. And again, that is just taking our first quartile, which is our lower end, and our third quartile, which is the upper end. So that's what we get for B. And part C tells us to compare the typical interval of distances for the 8 iron with the interval you found for the wedge. Do you wish to modify your advice to Josh? Explain. So basically what they're saying is, hey, now that we're talking consistency and which is more consistent, we did actually touch on this a little bit in the last problem at the end. Do we want to advise Josh to use a different iron? Or I guess a different club, not iron. So, or do we want to stick with the wedge? Do we want to say, yeah, the wedge is still going to be the better choice, or should we go with the 8-iron? Now, we talked about it is still true that the wedge is going to get us most oftentimes closer to the hole. However, the 8-iron is more consistent with distances. So it really depends, for Josh, what is more important, possibly getting it closer to the hole or consistency in your distances when you hit. So really it just depends. The 8-iron is more consistent. But on average, the wedge still gets the ball closer to the hole with each hit. So I guess in this case, it really just depends for Josh. Is he, which is more important, consistency or, possibly being able to get the ball closer to the hole? All right, and this is all for 820.